Hey guys, so OnePlus kind of made their name being, well, they called themselves flagship killers with their OnePlus One, which I think I paid £279 for. Back then flagships were probably £600, £700, so it's not like they are today, like £1.5 or something. So the gap wasn't, I guess, quite as big as it might sound when I say the OnePlus One was £279. But over the years, OnePlus they've wanted more, I suppose. They wanted to make better phones, and they realised that they need to spend more to do that, and then therefore they're going to need to charge more to do that. My OnePlus 8 Pro cost about £800, I think, and whilst that's still a long way under the £1.5 you might pay for some, it would be unfair to say that all flagships cost 1.5. Flagship territory is sort of 800 and above, I would suggest. So they've kind of joined all the others really, which is in some ways a bit of a shame. But perhaps they realised this, which is why they brought out the OnePlus Nord, which cost me £350 at the time. I think it's £379 now as it's released. And I've been using it for the last week as my main device, and I thought it's time to let you know what I think. I also want to point out to the more eagle-eyed, I'm wearing an actual OnePlus t-shirt. My OnePlus 8 Pro review, I entered it into a competition on the OnePlus forums, and although I didn't win, I didn't come second, I came either third, fourth or fifth. I don't know if they were in a particular order. There was three of us that all got t-shirts. Not that you can see the back. I'm not entirely sure I understand the back, if I'm honest. It's a little bit weird, but never mind. It's actually quite a nice t-shirt. It feels quite nice, so I've been wearing it the last couple of days around the flat. Anyway, on to the OnePlus Nord. And here she is. So obviously this is blue marble, it's called. It's a bit weird, there's no marble effect. The other option being grey onyx. It's 8.2 millimeters thick. It's 184 grams, and it is a 6.44 inch screen. So that gives you a rough idea of the size. It's not the biggest, but it's not small by any means. I quite like the size. It's not too big, it's not too heavy. It's big enough that it's good for watching media, you know, Netflix and Plex and what have you. And it does quite a good job of having reasonably small bezels with, of course, the cutout dual front-facing camera lenses. It is protected front and back with Gorilla Glass 5. It comes pre-installed with one of their usual not very good screen protectors, if I'm very honest, but I have learnt my lesson. There's somehow I've managed to scratch just like the tiny scratches on my last two devices. I think it happens in pockets that I put the phones in when I go cycling. So I've learnt my lesson. I'm leaving the screen protectors on, even if they're very flimsy. And if you really care, you probably should take them off and get like a tempered glass, because it is at least a flat screen, which hopefully people, you know, manufacturers realise and people prefer. I think I don't think I've heard anybody saying, "Oh, I love the curved screen. I much prefer it over flat." Everyone says, "Oh, just give me a flat screen." If we talk about the hardware, oh, I didn't mention, sorry, it's a plastic frame. So it is glass front and back, but it's a plastic frame. I have no issue with that in a £380 phone. That's fine. I mean, I'm not that bothered anyway. Why do I need it to be metal? The front and back are glass anyway. You cannot feel any difference in this device in using it with it being a plastic frame to a metal frame, I don't think. Maybe it saves a few grams as well. Actually, that's probably a good thing. Anyway, on to the actual hardware. So it's a Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G, which is a 7nm. It's kind of the top end of the mid-range, if that makes sense. Top end of the second place. I think it was Marques Brownlee that said everything on this phone is second best, which sounds bad, but it's not. It's because this is not a top end, this is not a flagship, this is not going to have the best processor. It's going to have the second best processor. I'm okay with that. It might not have the best screen. it's got the second best screen, I'm okay with that 379 pounds. I think it was a really good point. I probably shouldn't nick things off other reviewers, but I thought that was a really good point to make. The chipset is an octa-core chipset. What do I need to tell you there? Well, 475 gold, silver, prime, gold and silver. It's got an Adreno 620 GPU. This one has 8 gig of RAM with 128 gig of storage, but you can go to 12 gig of RAM with 250 gig of storage. I just thought it's overkill. You just don't need that much, or I don't need that much space. It does have a UFS 2.1 file system, which was the first point that I kind of got to and again, second place, that's okay. So the newer one being the UFS 3.1. And effectively, I think that's just how quickly it can read and write information from the memory. So it's quite important, to be fair. And that's why I kind of, it Geekbenched, averaged at 1,896, which is okay. It's not up there with the best of them. It's not up there with the Poco F2 Pro, which doesn't cost a lot more. It's not up there with the iPhone SE, which doesn't cost a lot more. But actually, probably the most important thing, I know I'm doing a lot of talking and not showing you much of the device, probably the most important thing is just, it is smooth. I just don't have any issues. There's no points where I've thought, yeah, that's where you see lack of processing power. It's just a really smooth device. So I'm okay with that Geekbench score. I'm okay with that processor that they're using because it's plenty good enough. What else do you need to know? Oh, and I don't do a lot of gaming. I play a little bit of Mario perhaps from time to time. And again, it was fine. There's no stutters, there's no lags. It does not hinder your gaming experience. I have heard, I don't know if it's true, that the G in the 765G is for a gaming version. I don't know if that just means the GPU is better than a regular 765, I don't know. But yeah, definitely no issues there. It does have 5G, the OnePlus Nord, but I don't have 5G myself, so I can't test that. But it's nice to know. It's kind of future-proofing, I suppose. It's got a half-decent solo firing speaker out of the bottom, which I can tell you averaged 93.5 decibels on my test, which is quite high. It's quite up there. I forget how many devices are ahead of it, but not a lot. It is up near the top. Let's pick some.
Goal you want to achieve, and sometimes if you're too fixated on that and forgetting to focus.
So for me, the speaker is quite important. I use it quite a lot for podcasts, even for phone calls or duo, video calls. And actually, yeah, it's pretty good. It's loud enough. It's clear enough. I'm not overly hung up on the whole stereo speaker thing. It doesn't massively bother me. So pretty good. So as I mentioned, the screen is a 6.44 inch Fluid AMOLED. And it's got an 86.7% screen to body ratio because of those reasonably small bezels. It is 2400 by 1080, which is a 20:9 ratio and about 408 pixels per inch, which is pretty good. And I mean, again, I've maybe it's my old eyes. I tend not to have issue anyway with much lower res than that. But this one, I think the colors look good. The sort of reds pop nicely. And it is 900, and it is 90 Hertz refresh rate, which means generally you get a nice smooth experience. Again, I'm not one, I don't think I can tell the difference between 90 and 60 and 120. I don't know, it must be my old eyes. It's HDR10 plus standard. I've mentioned the Corning Gorilla Glass 5. It maxed out at 759 lumens on my brightness test, which is pretty good actually. That's up there. I mean, you don't need more than 700 really. 700 is enough that outdoors in the daylight you're going to be able to see just fine. So yeah, it's a very nice screen. Certainly no issues there. I'd had some requests to check for like issues at low light or low brightness. So I'm going to put the brightness right the way down. I don't know if there's certain situations only that it shows up, but I couldn't get it to show up. And if it's got to be that certain a situation, I don't really see that it's that much of an issue. Seemed fine to me with the white and grey screen with the brightness set to its lowest possible level. The screen can be one of the things that you can suffer when you go to the budget end of things. I mean, we're not in the budget end of things, but as you come down that price range, they will sometimes cheap out on the screen. But no, it is a very good screen. The other thing that often gets cheaped out on are the cameras. The OnePlus Nord is definitely well equipped with cameras. We have a 48 megapixel main camera, f1.8. We've got an 8 megapixel ultra wide. We've got a 5 megapixel depth sensor, and we've got a 2 megapixel macro lens. On the front is a 32 megapixel just regular wide angle. That's f2.5. And then there's a 5 megapixel ultra wide f2.5. So if we take a look at some of the pictures, this is using the stock camera app. I think they're generally pretty good. I did do a separate video where I put it up against the Poco F2 Pro, and they were very similarly matched, to be fair. Generally there's good detail, nice strong vibrant colours, a variety of different shots in different situations and scenarios, and here we see the ultra wide lens in action, the regular wide angle, and then we move into the 2 times. I think they generally look fairly consistent across all of them until we get to the 10 times, which is obviously using the digital zoom, which isn't particularly great. Low light I thought was quite good. Again, when I compared it, it had better detail in the low light pictures. I wasn't so impressed by night mode. The color balance in the night mode shot really not very good. The selfie cam's pretty good. That's the regular wide angle. They go to the ultra wide, and actually I found myself using the ultra wide more. I do take a lot of selfies. Portrait, because of the 2 lenses, I thought was very good. It did a really good job of cutting out around that. Let's take a look at some video. Again, video generally was of pretty good quality. Struggles a little bit here. Look, a lot of lens flare there, but I don't have a massive issue with it. It was quite strong sunlight straight into the, well, I say straight into the side of the lens. Slightly jittery on the panning, but I think enough that you can forgive it. The image stabilization generally was quite good, but in my comparison it wasn't quite as good as the Poco F2, I didn't think. Low light again, like the photos, generally I thought looked pretty good, quite good detail. It deals quite well with the lights and the darker areas, you know, the maintaining the detail. Now let's have a listen to the mic on the front facing. So this is actually video from the wide angle. Well, it should be the wide angle. It gives us a chance to test the microphone, which I've found generally to be pretty good. It's good rounded sound, including a bit of bass. So yeah, video for a sort of mid-range device, I thought it was pretty good. I think most people are going to be happy enough with its results. Then people kept talking about the G-Cam. Install a G-Cam. So okay, and you can actually see quite a big difference. Obviously you're using the same hardware, but the processing is very different for each one. And it does generally look like the colours are stronger in the stock app, but I'm not sure. There's somewhere it just looks a little hazy on the G-Cam app, and it looks like maybe there's a little bit of detail is perhaps lost. And again, it perhaps depends which you prefer. I feel like the G-Cam has more natural colours. Again, the details seemed a bit better in low light on the stock app, but I'm not entirely sure. Front facing, I think looked a bit better on G-Cam, but yeah, the cameras on the whole pretty good. So if we move on to software, it's running Android 10 and it is OxygenOS version 10. A lot of people tell you that OnePlus's OxygenOS is the best version of Android there is. I can't argue with that. It's very stock experience, but with just a few little tweaks, and it's very easily customizable. So if we come back to customization, so for example, system icons, we can change them to teardrop. Give it a second. There they are, they're teardrop. The accent color. Oh, colorful tone. So we need to change the tone. So let's go to kind of basic dark mode. Then we go to accent color and we go to red. Give it a second. There we go. We're now dark mode with the red accent. Change wallpaper, clock style, fingerprint animation. Oh, we did the tone. The icon pad, all sorts. Font, all very easily customizable. So there's a lot of little things that, actually you can see a slight bit of lag there, do you see that? I also love the icon manager. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but basically you can turn on and off all the different icons you get along the top. So I can turn off Bluetooth, you can turn off Wi-Fi, you could turn off the signal if you wanted, you can turn off the battery. You can change, because I don't like too much waffle up there apart from my notifications, so I love that you can do that. One of the things, it's not, I suppose it's not really software, it's probably design more, but the amount of times I keep taking screenshots so if I power off, but if you press the volume down at the same time as powering off, you get a screenshot. I must take 2 or 3 screenshots a day. So yeah, like I say, it's more of a design thing. Maybe the volume rocker should be a little bit higher up on the left-hand side. Maybe I'm the only person that has that issue, but I didn't mention the in-screen fingerprint sensor. It's generally been very reliable for me. No issues, quick enough. I quite like the pull-down shelf. So if you go to the very top and pull down, you get the usual toggles. But if you swipe down from anywhere, you get the shelf, and you can basically put widgets, or so recent apps are there, widgets down here, look, toolbox, step counter, dashboard, another widget. It's quite nice actually when you get the hang of it. Having said that, there were some times where I was trying to bring down the toggles and I would end up with the shelf instead, but not particularly a big problem. I am still having issues with my Wear OS watch. I don't know why it doesn't want to play, or why OnePlus doesn't want to play with it. So it connects no problems, it passes notifications no problems, but it won't pass the connection. As in, if my phone wants to install any apps, it can't. It says you're not connected. If my phone wants to use Google Keep, so when I do my shopping, I prefer to use the Keep app on my wristwatch and just tick things off on there as I go. It can't, because it can't connect and it can't sync. And I've got that on the OnePlus 8 Pro, I've got that on this. I don't know why. I thought it was to do with OxygenOS's sort of RAM management being quite aggressive, but I actually ran the app Don't Kill My App, and you start a benchmark. I ran it for 8 hours overnight, and it actually scored 100%, which means, I mean, it's basically pixel level lack of RAM management, if that makes sense. It's just letting apps get on with things in the background. Essentially what this app does, I mean, it's funny because it says OnePlus have a terrible down thumbs rating. So maybe it's changed, maybe it's new in the Nord, I don't know. But essentially they've set services up that do actions every sort of, I forget how often, minute, 5 minutes, something like that. And the percentage is how many of those actions still happen. And 8 hours later, it was still letting the services do these different actions, which is good. It's a good thing. It surprised me because, as I say, they've got a bad reputation for really strong RAM management. But it still won't pass the connection on to my watch. Then there's the other possible, for me, big issue, no always on display. So apparently they're working on it. I don't really know, what is there to work on? Don't you just turn it on? I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying things, but that is on. Keep it on. I don't know, I don't get it. And I hate not having an always on display. I do like an always on display. Then there's this thing that sort of the news that broke almost about OnePlus have done a deal with Facebook, which means you get Facebook and apps pre-installed, but you also get an app manager and like a service that's going to run in the background, and you can disable and remove the apps like Facebook, but that service is going to stay there. And apparently you will note, well, you won't notice, but people have noticed it sends information in the background back to Facebook. We don't know what, and we don't know why, and you know, it is a bit of a worry. And if I read an article that I found, speaking to Android Police, OnePlus has since confirmed that it has struck a deal to include Facebook App Installer, Facebook Services, and Facebook App Manager as system apps on its latest smartphones, namely OnePlus 8 Pro and the Nord. OnePlus say that by pre-installing the Facebook services, apps such as the main Facebook app and Messenger, both of which are also pre-installed, that end up eating less battery life. This method doesn't leave Facebook Messenger, Instagram and other Facebook apps installed on your device permanently. You're free to uninstall those, but the underlying services app installer and app manager apps will remain installed as system apps that can't be removed, only disabled. OnePlus confirmed, too, that it intends to continue this practice for future smartphone releases in North America, India and Europe. And like I said, I didn't get the bit, but it does talk about how it does send, they are known to send information back. Someone has tracked it, sends information back. So that's a little bit of a worry. It's a little bit like OnePlus, you go for the stock experience, don't sell out to Facebook. At the same time, if it knocks £20 off the device, do you accept that and take that? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I think it's a really interesting subject. If we move on to the battery, it is a LiPo 4150 mAh battery. The charger that you get with the device is a 30-watt charger, which will do 70% of charge in 30 minutes. Now, if I'm honest, it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. So we've got a reasonably big screen, we've got a 90 Hz refresh rate, but it's a 4115 mAh battery. So you kind of think that's going to be pretty monster. So here's my use today. 13 hours ago, to be fair, I started at 98%, but then the first 6 or 7 hours was me asleep, and then you can see where I wake up and you can see it kind of plummet. It's been quite a tough morning for the phone, to be fair, so I jogged to the gym listening to music on my Bluetooth earphones. In the gym I'm listening to music and I'm using it to track my sets. I've been taking a few photos for another photo comparison, and then I've been home and relaxing, and it's kind of eased up a little bit. So it's been quite a tough day, but it's only 20 to 12 and I'm at 51% already. That's not great. Yesterday wasn't a particularly tough day. I went off to work. A lot of time when I'm at work, I don't really use my phone. It's not the kind of job that I use my phone much. I did go for a cycle where I listening to podcasts while I'm cycling for an hour or so. But then I think it was around 6 or 7 o'clock, I was down to 24%. And that's after maybe 13 or 14 hours. That's not as good as I'd hoped it would be. Having said that, I did my usual test, where I play a sort of a 37-minute video, then I have the auto web page reloader that loads pages in till I get to an hour, and it finished on 93%, which isn't bad. I mean, there's others that have done better. One phone managed like 98%. I forget which one it was now. But generally, 92 and above, you kind of go, all right, it's pretty good battery life. So I'm a little bit torn. If we look at AccuBattery, at the minute it's saying average use, screen on time 6.5 hours, and just regular sort of day-to-day, almost 22 hours. Which again, that's fine. That's better than my Pixel 4. Probably that sort of average use is 18 hours or whatever. And to be honest, as long as it's above kind of 12 or 14 hours, it shouldn't really be a problem. I can put it on charge. I mean, I can put it on charge during the day at work, but yeah, I was just a little surprised. I thought it would be stronger, but it's possibly a byproduct of this eased up RAM management. So if it's letting services crack on in the background, which I prefer, you would imagine the battery life is going to suffer a little bit. So, all in all, I do really like the phone. The performance is good. The camera's fine. The screen, I think, is beautiful. The speaker is strong. Nothing has been pushing me to get back to my Pixel 4, my main device. This was my new scale that I kind of came up with recently, wasn't it, I think? Where do I lie on the scale of, I've got to get off this device and back to my main device, to actually I'm going to keep this as my new daily? And the Nord is kind of, it's up towards that end. So I don't want it as my new daily, but I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't be bothered if it was my new daily. I'm that one step inside that's kind of like, yeah, I'm all right with this device, it's fine. I'm in no massive hurry to get back to my daily. I'm not like, oh my God, when can I go back to my Pixel 4 or my OnePlus 8 Pro? And I think in this day and age, that's kind of where we are with mid-range devices. Most people, mid-range devices all they need. It ticks all the boxes. As MKBHD said, it's kind of second best to everything, which generally is good enough. You see photos from the second best camera to the best camera, you're generally not going to notice the difference. Having said that, for me, the deal breakers at the moment, no always on display. I do like an always on display. And then it just won't pass the connection to my watch. I don't know why it won't play with Wear OS. OnePlus, please fix that. Because that is a pain. It kind of disables my watch in some way. I mean, still get the notifications is the important thing. But those, and I mean, you might say the battery, but I wouldn't say the battery. The battery's, everything else is really very good and second best. The battery isn't second best, it's probably mid-table best. But that's not a problem, it's not down the bottom, so that's kind of the main thing. So there we go. I love the device. Well, I really like the device, let's say. Oh, you see how I've managed to match my background with my new lights. I've got some new lights lighting up the back. So yeah, the OnePlus Nord is a very nice device for the money, $379. It's such an interesting mid-range area now for phones to battle in. But please do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you agree or disagree, let me know. If you've got one, if you like it, do let me know in the comments. I do read all of them. Check out other videos on my channel. Obviously subscribe if you're not already subscribing. Thank you to my Patreons who contribute. I bought this with my own money. I buy almost all my phones with my own money, so please do consider Patreon or just buy me a coffee. The links are in the video description. But for now, my name's Andy, and I'll catch you all again soon.